YouTube family. It's Top Z. I'm back here with another one, man. Hey, today it's going to be a touchy subject. I'm going to get straight to it. But have you or any of your family members or loved ones ever had to deal with a house fire? That's what I'm going to talk about today, man. When I was a junior in high school, I lost everything. This would have been about 2006. My house burned completely to the ground. Now, for y'all don't know, I grew up in a pretty rough and poverty-stricken environment. I don't want to keep harping on that, but basically we're already living poor, and then my house burned down, and I lost everything. You know, I remember it like it was yesterday, because anytime you have a traumatic experience happen in your life, you know, you don't forget it. You know, you try to forget it, you try to move on with life, but it's always there, you know? So, luckily, no one in my situation, no one was injured besides my animals. That was one of the roughest parts of the whole situation. Not only losing my entire childhood home, all my memories burnt to the ground, to losing my animals. And anybody out there that has pets, you know you love your animals just like a person. You know, some people love, you love your animals damn near more to some people because, you know, they're always there for you. And, you know, it was just one of those days. Normal day at school, everything was cool. Got on the bus, went to school, and all I remember is, you know, on my way home, I lived in a neighborhood where the bus dropped you off at every street. It was like a subdivision, and every street was a bus stop. And where my house was at one of the bus stops. So literally I could just walk out of my front door of my house and I'm right there at the bus stop. Well, on this particular day, the bus stopped down the street and the street was blocked off by a bunch of fire trucks. Now, mind you, this is 2006, so cell phones were just kind of coming on the scene. Like, technology wasn't there yet, so, you know, there was no way, and I was young, so there was really, and we were poor, so there was no way really for my mom to, you know, call me and let me know or anything like that. So I just remember not being able to get off, or, you know, not being able to go down to my bus stop because the streets were blocked off by fire trucks and police officers. And so, you know, I called I didn't call anybody. My friend was like, "Oh man, you're gonna have to get off at our stop. I'll walk down there with you," because there was one other dude that got off of my stop down the street. And so I'm like, all right, well, I get off the bus and I'm walking up this hill, and my friend was in front of me. He was walking faster than me. And, you know, I'm just nonchalantly walking like, oh, look at these fire trucks, you know, whatever. Because you don't ever think something's happening to you until it happens. And I just remember my friend turning around and looking at me, and he was like, hey, ain't that your house? And I looked, and it was my house. And so I take off running fast as I can, because at this time, I have a younger brother that's 9 years younger than me. And so he was still in kindergarten. And at that time, my stepdad, he was like basically unemployed. He had hurt his back. So he was like, you know, he was at home a lot, and he would let my little brother stay home from school a lot. And they would just sleep in and, you know, all that type of stuff. So in my head, the first thing that popped in my head was, did he go to school today? Because like I said, a lot of the time, like prior to that, he had been staying home, you know, just for whatever reason, just because he didn't feel like going or whatever. My stepdad didn't make him, whatever. So I'm running up, and I just see my mom in the driveway bawling her eyes out. And I just remember like the look on her face because she worked hard for what she did have. You know, a lot of people don't realize this. People that were born into money or, just get to a point in life where they just have an abundance of money, and they just, they take things for granted. Even people that don't have money sometimes take things for granted. I know I do, and I'm trying to work really hard on being more appreciative for what I do have than to be upset about what I don't have, It's a part of growing up. It's a part of being, just a humble person, and appreciating life. So, anywho, I just remember seeing her face because, like I said, she barely had anything, and to lose everything like that is traumatic because she didn't know either. There was no way for anybody to call her. She just came home from work because she got off work right around the same time I got out of school, a little bit before me. And so she's sitting there, she's bawling her eyes out, and there's nothing I could do for her. And I feel that's like a sense of like helplessness. You can't, you see her, you see somebody you love, especially your mom, just in there crying. There's like nothing you could do. You looking over your childhood home burnt to the ground. You're wondering, is everybody okay? She can't get 2 words out. She's just bawling. And I just remember that, man. It was like very traumatic for me because, like I said, I didn't get no pre-warning. I just got off the bus and all my friends were like, hey, and that's another thing people don't do intentionally. But, when something's not happening to them, they're not feeling that pain, especially as kids. So, like, I remember the kid kind of laughing about it because he's like, hey, ain't that your house? And I'm looking like, what? And I look over and it is my house. And I'm like, what? And I take off running because I don't know if, my mom's in there, my little brother's in there, my stepdad's in there, my animals are in there. I don't know what's going on. So I take off running. The first thing I see my mom. So that was kind of a sign of relief because I was like, okay, she's okay. Now I'm looking. I don't see my brother nowhere. I don't see my stepdad nowhere. I don't see nothing. I'm just like, what's going on? She's like, we lost everything. She's hysterical, emotional, And so she can't even really explain to me what's going on. She don't know what's going on. In hindsight, she just got pulled in the driveway herself and was just crying. She's trying to call whoever she can call to, like, because she don't know what to do. Who knows what to do when there's a house fire? And then there's insurance companies that actually have like police scanners. And I didn't know this at the time, but I know looking back on it now, like, the insurance companies listen to police scanners. If they hear a house fire, they pull up on scene, like, and they try to get you to do business with them. And I just remember that, like, you're going through a traumatic experience, and this dude's sitting here, like, trying to get you, like, while you're all discombobulated and stuff because they want your business. I mean, it's a part of business. It's a part of sales. It's their sales strategy or whatever to get you when you're vulnerable, because then you're just like, yeah, and you'll sign whatever instead of actually like doing some research and figuring out what's the best cause, because the insurance companies, they get a profit off of you doing business with them, so they were just like, I just remember them trying to talk to my mom, and she's like, what? Like, she can't even understand what they're saying, let alone like explain to me what's going on. And I just remember, like, after she wasn't paying attention to what I was trying to say, she was like, I was like, well, where's everybody at? And she goes, well, your brother's at school and your dad's at a doctor's appointment. Your stepdad's at a doctor's appointment. So I was just like, okay, that was a sign of relief. I'm like, next thing that pops in my head is like, all right, well, where's the animals? And she was just like, I don't know. Like, basically saying she don't know and stuff. And so me being a hard-headed 16-year-old that was already going through some things, I was just like, the fire was pretty much out. They were just putting it out. And I just remember also, like, looking over and, and this goes, being a firefighter or a medic or a police officer, man, that's a thankless job. So, man, I appreciate anybody in that line of duty that, is doing the right thing and they're not corrupt, or, they're actually trying to help the people, because it is it's a thankless job, and, they put their lives on the line for people, every day. So shout out to them. But at the same time, again, not doing it maliciously, but they're just doing their job, and they get used to it. They're used to They put out fires. That's what they do for a living. So they're just used to it. That's not their house on fire. That's not their house, their memories and childhood memories. So I just remember like the firefighters seeing them, because like I said, the fire is basically out, and I just seeing them like laughing and cutting up. I don't know what they were talking about, because like I said, my adrenaline was going so high. I'm just like, I'm all over the place. I'm a 16-year-old kid in the driveway. There's, my mom's not like telling me to go sit in the car. I'll be there in a minute. She was just like, she was in her own zone. So then I was in my own zone. Nobody else was there. So I'm looking around, like trying to see if there's anything, like trying to figure out what's going on. I just remember the firefighters like laughing and cutting up about a TV show, let's just say, or the sports game or whatever. They're and I'm just laughing. I'm like, man, y'all think this is funny? Like, in my head, I'm thinking that, I know they're not making fun, but they're laughing in a time that in my eyes was like very traumatic, obviously. And so I'm like pushing past, I'm kind of like sneaking past them. They're like, hey, get back over here. I'm like, man, shut up talking to me. Like, I was being rude or whatever a little bit. And I was just like, man, shut up talking to me. And so I go to the backyard, because all the firefighters and stuff were in the front yard. So I went to the backyard, snuck around, and one seen me, so he tried to follow me, but I took off running. And then like I just remember going to the back door, and the back door was knocked down, and I kind of like walked in a little bit, and the guy was like, oh, you can't go in there yet. Like, you can't go in there. And I looked, and all my animals, well, 2 out of 3 of my animals that I had for 10 years, I had a cat for 10 years, and then I had a dog for like 5 years. And it is emotional, man. So I'm trying to give y'all the raw, real, unedited version, but man, it'll choke me up. So, but yeah, I just remember going in there and seeing my dog and my cat at the back door dead. They died because the doors were locked, and they were trying to get out, because they knew that's where we let them out to go potty and stuff. And my cat was kind of like an inside, but he was an outside cat too, so he knew like where to go. And yeah, they were at the back door dead from the smoking. They didn't burn up because they put the fire out, but there was so much smoke that they died from smoke inhalation. And I just remember seeing them, and that, and when dogs die or animals die, they die with their tongues out. And I just vaguely remember, like I remember that vividly, I should say, not vaguely, but vividly remember just their tongue hanging out and trying to grab them. And then by that time, the firefighter was already on me. And so he yanked me out. He was like, you can't be in here. Get out of here. What are you doing? I'm like, man, leave me alone, man. And the next thing you know, we're fighting. So a bunch of other firefighters, like, we're not fighting, but I'm like resisting, like him pulling me back. And then, they call my mom and a couple other firefighters. They, pull me out, and they're like, man, chill out. I know it's tough, but chill out. So I'm yelling. Now I'm kind of getting hysterical with my mom too. I'm like, our dogs, the animals are dead, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for the other one. Like, I only seen 2, and I had 1 more, and I couldn't find it. And, but when I was in there and I was looking, I just seen everything was just burnt, charred. Like, I knew all my clothes. I had a Pokemon collection, like, little stupid stuff, but like, Pokemon was like a big thing back in the day. And, I collected every single card. It was like a hobby of mine or whatever. And, those things are worth a lot of money nowadays in 2025. But back then, they really weren't worth none. It was a hobby. And I had a binder that had every single one. I used to go to like, flea markets to get the rare ones. And I used to do this and that. I had the rare, like, holographic Charizard. I had if you know anything about Pokemon, I ain't going to keep talking about Pokemon. But yeah, it was, looking at it now, like, that would have been worth a lot of money. But yeah, because I was the type of person, like, I didn't have much, so I took really good care of what I did have. And then so it would have been in pristine condition. And then, like, I had, like, all my old school, like, I'm the type of person that I still have stuff from 20 years ago that's in pristine condition. Like, and so, like, I would have had, a bunch of nostalgic things, let's just put it like that. But it all went up in flames. I already didn't have that much clothes or, shoes or nothing. That all went up in flames. So I only had the one outfit that I had on me. My mom's trying to figure out where we're going to, you got so much stuff going through your mind. You don't know where you're going to sleep. You don't know where you're going to eat. All your food's burnt up. You're like I said, like there's just so much that's going on all at once, you know. And so I was 16 and I just got my license, and so after that happened, I needed to get away for a second. So I don't know why I didn't drive to school that day, but you know, I was just trying to save some gas money or whatever. My mom was only letting me drive on the weekends. I can't remember for real, but I was like, I knew my little brother, he didn't get out of school for like another hour. So I was like, and the school wasn't that far. So I was like, I told my mom, I was like, I'm gonna go get my brother just so he don't have to experience seeing it in that traumatic fashion the way I did, because he would have got off the bus and seen all the firefighters and my mom crying and everything too. So I went and picked him up from school, and you know, he got in the car, and I kind of was like riding around trying to, you know, buy time or whatever. And I'm just pretending like, you know, for the most part everything's okay, but he could, you know, obviously I was upset, so he knew something was going on. But when you're that young, you don't really know. So it's like I was trying to think of how, in my head, how I could break it to him easier way. And so after riding around or whatever, I think we went and got ice cream at McDonald's or something. I was kind of just, I had to let him know, like, hey, bro, this is very hard for me to tell you, but I didn't want you to get off the bus, and I wanted you to hear it from somebody to kind of let you know, but our house burned down and we lost everything. And, you know, he's just innocent kid just eating his ice cream, and he don't know what's going on. And he was like, oh, okay. I was like, it's okay though, buddy. You got to keep your head up. You know, it'll be all right. You know, I've always been the type of person that, you know, we're human, so we get down and we get upset, but I've never been the type of person that's not gotten back up, if that makes sense. I've always been, you know, a person that gets back up on their 2 feet. If I fall down when I was riding a bike, I got back up. You know, that's one thing, you know, my mom always taught me, like, you get knocked down, you get back up. You don't just lay there and cry about it. And so this was one of those situations, and I was telling him the same thing. I was like, man, we're gonna get through it, don't worry. And so I ended up pulled back up to the house. By this time, like I said, the insurance dude's out there like talking to my mom, and my mom's just like, and he was like, we could put you in a hotel and for until we can get the insurance stuff, you know, taken care of. And so we don't know. So we ended up staying in a hotel that night. And at this point, I'm calling all my friends, and like the friends that I do have, family members. I'm like, hey man, my house just burned down. They're like, oh, that sucks, but you know, we don't really got room for another kid, because I wasn't trying to stay in a hotel. And me and my stepdad really weren't getting along at this time, you know. And so I was just, and then, yeah, so I think my aunt and uncle ended up letting me stay there for a little while. And then, like, my mom was trying to figure it out. And then, so she ended up getting like, the insurance thing takes a long time, because they got to make sure it wasn't, you know, purposefully done, or like, you know, they got to make sure it was like everything is in order. And so like the police department or the fire department has to do their investigation and all this type of stuff. So what ended up happening, which before I got to go back real quick, sorry, but I forgot about this, but yeah, me and my mom ended up going into the house, and just everything was burnt up. Like, we were just walking around, just everything charred. And we were looking around, and we were looking for our other animal, because we didn't know if she got out or she didn't. And so we're just looking around, because she wasn't at the back door. And I remember, like, anytime there was a storm or anything, like, the dog would always go to this one hiding spot. So I went and I took a deep breath, because I just knew that's probably where she was at. And I go into the bedroom, and I look under there was this dresser we had that had, like, you know, underneath the dressers there's like a hollow, because it was one of those old decorative dressers. And so it has like, it's like hollow underneath. And so I looked under there, and sure enough, she was there, and she was dead from the smoke. And so I told my mom I found her. And then she was like, let me see. And I was just trying to hold her back, because she she couldn't believe it. It's a weird thing to do because, me telling her like she's down there, she's dead, you would think you'd be like, okay, I don't want to see it. But when you're traumatic like that, in your head, you think you can try to save her or give her CPR or something. So that's what my mom was doing. I was trying to hold her back. I just remember mom's kind of heavier, so I was trying to hold her back. And, she's seen her, and then she started getting hysterical again. And I'm trying to get her out, and we're walking out we're basically trying to salvage anything we can, which there was nothing. And as we're walking out, we look up, and the only thing that didn't get burnt up in the entire house was a painting that my great grandmother did of my great grandfather, and that my mom, that got passed down from generations. And everything was burnt up on the walls all around the picture frame. But for whatever reason, that picture frame didn't catch on fire. And my mom just was like in shock and awe. And, at the time I really wasn't tripping. I'm like, man, I ain't tripping on that painting. I just lost all my clothes, all my games, all my, collectible items. I remember whenever quarters, United States, started releasing like new quarters, and every year it would be like a different state. And I had this big book that had all the states on it, and there was a slot for each quarter. So every time you got a quarter, every time the new quarter came out, you would put that state corresponding quarter in its slot. And it's like a collector's item thing that I had like damn near halfway full. And so yeah, anyways, so yeah, she grabs the painting, which she still has, and she, holds that to like her, was like one of her favorite possessions. And because it was just amazing how it didn't get burnt up. But yeah, we ended up leaving. They got the hotel. My aunt and uncle let me stay with them for a little bit. I'm still having to go to school because I can't miss out. I'm taking like high school class, I'm taking high school classes. So it's like, you know how it is in algebra 2 and stuff like that. And these, if you miss out on any lessons, you get behind real quick. And so, and to me, I had like perfect attendance. I was taking school very seriously because like I said in my other videos, like there really wasn't very many options for someone that's born in a poverty like that. You're like, it's either the military or college, or, try to be an entrepreneur of some sort, but you got to have money to play the game. Even if you got a creative mind and you got the best ideas in the world, you still got to have the financial backing. And, nobody teaches us about credit, and nobody teaches us about this or that. So like a lot of people that grew up where I grew up, man, we didn't know nothing. All we know is trying to get our, how are we going to pay for our next meal? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know anything about money because nobody has money. So everybody's just paycheck to paycheck, scraping by, criminal activity, all that type of stuff. So, yeah, so, I got to go back to school. So I ended up going back to school, and, I told my teacher, like, she was like, well, where have you been? So I think I might have missed a day or something. I'm like, I tell them like, man, my house burned down, I lost everything. And they were like, I just remember like the teacher not really caring. And she was like, well, get over here. And mind you, I'm going through all this stuff prior to my house burning down. Like, me and my stepdad don't get along. He's an alcoholic. He's, basically a drug addict at this time. Like, he's just doing wild ass shit, like blacked out, like breaking stuff in the house and just, just wild ass shit. I'm already dealing with not having a real father in my life because he left when I was 30. So I'm just going through all this stuff, and high school's already hard enough. You're trying to fit in, you're trying to get along, and then I was like a minority at my school, so like trying to just, just get by or whatever, dealing with bullies, dealing with trying to, all the high school stuff you're going through, and then on top of this, you got all this other crap. And I just remember the teacher not caring. I remember the teacher, like, because I was like exhausted from all this stuff going on. And I just remember kind of like, by the time I'm getting to, English class, English 101 or whatever, I'm like in class kind of like, because, English can be boring. And so I'm sitting there like dozing off, and she's sitting there thinking I'm on drugs or something. And I remember her accusing me of being on drugs. I'm like, lady, I just, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what I got going on. And, see, instead of being a caring teacher, she was, because I went to a rough school. So like, I get it. She probably dealt with all types of bad kids, and looking back on it now, but at the time it's like, I'm going through a lot. And instead of her, like, pulling me to the side and asking me what's going on and trying to actually be there for me, she was just like a total, a B. And so, basically, and that made me mad. That made me not even want to do anything in her class anymore. And I was trying to be rebellious. But, I still got my job done and stuff. I still passed the class with good grades and stuff. But still, I just remember, like, hey, who the hell do you think you are? And that just goes to show, you don't never know what somebody's got going on. Just because, you can't judge a book by its cover. And sometimes that's all it takes is for you to ask, like, hey, is there anything what's going on? Do you need somebody, a shoulder to lean on? And that's why I started this channel, because maybe there's somebody that's going through this same thing right now in their life or worse, and they might need a real person that can actually give them a shoulder to lean on and listen to them. Because a lot of people listen, but they ain't hearing you. You know what I mean? There's a difference. Or they're hearing you, but they ain't listening, however you want to put it. But you know what I mean. They're like, we all know, we all, pour our heart out to somebody, and you're being serious, and you're being as real as you can. And then people are just like, most people are like, anyways, did you see what happened with Diddy? It's like, damn, bro, but that's just how life is. And it sucks because, most people they're distracted by the programming of the Matrix. And so I just remember that. I remember that teacher doing that to me. And then so word got around school that I lost everything. Mind you, I only got the clothes on my back. My family was poor, so they didn't just go buy me a new wardrobe, or, you know what I'm saying? So basically I was wearing the same clothes, you know what I mean? And it was a rough time, because, high school is an impressionable time, man. You're trying to meet friends, you're trying to meet girls for the first time, you're trying to do your work, your homework, figuring out where you're going to go in life, figuring out what you're going to do. It's just a lot going on. It's a very, crucial time in a kid's life. They're going through puberty. They're going through, trying to figure out what their next stage of life is going to be. And you grow up quick. And, yeah, so I just remember having to wear the same shirt over and over, and people probably had stains on it. And people noticed the stains. So they're like, hey, didn't you wear that shirt yesterday? Or have you wear that shirt for 2 days? I'm like, yeah, man, my house burned down. I ain't got nothing right now. It's like, kids are mean, especially where I grew up. It was pretty rough. That's why I be telling people that try to troll me. It's like, you ain't saying nothing that I ain't already heard. And, people try to, look at him. He got the same shirt on for 3 days. These are all micro trauma, trauma things, micro, traumas that you deal with, that people deal with. And I know people got it way worse than me. So, I mean, I'm just giving y'all what my testimonies and, my experiences on things, and what, but when it all comes down to it, adversity builds character. When you go through these trials and these tribulations, it just makes you stronger. That's all it is. If it don't kill you, it makes you stronger. And so I'm dealing with kids, I'm dealing with teachers, I'm dealing with, my mom, trying to figure out where she's gonna live. And my stepdad, he always wanted to, he always had a dream to live out in the country, because he liked fishing and stuff, and he was just a country bumpkin. And so they ended up finding a house, and because you only get a certain amount of time to figure out where you're gonna go, blah 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 blah. I'm a kid, so I didn't really get all the details on that, but I just know she found a house probably an hour to an hour and a half away from our original home. She wanted to get far away from there because like I said, I had a younger brother that was in kindergarten, and she wanted him to not have to go through what I went, the childhood upbringing that I went through. So they ended up moving way out into the country, and it was my senior year. It was the middle. It was my junior year going into summer or whatever. So it was my senior year was coming up. And so we're trying to figure out, my mom was asking me, do you want to do your senior year out here at a whole nother school? Or do you want to finish out where you've been going to school? And in my head, I said, no, I want to finish where I started because I don't want to have to go to another school. And even though that school probably would have been better, you never know. You just never know what could have happened in life. But looking back on it, I probably should have went to the other school because it was a better school. Probably had better teachers, better guidance, probably better mentors I probably could have met. Just anything. But we're not going to play the what if game. But, it was a way better school, way out in the country and stuff. But me, I was in fear even going out to the country just because I never been out there before. I never experienced anything like that. And I knew I was going to be different, looked at different, and judged because I grew up in the city, in the ghetto, in the, in the hood or whatever you want to say, in poverty, so I was going to go out here into the country where everybody was going to look at me different and treat me different. And then back then too, I was like a lot more rebellious. Like I said, I was, and so I would have been looking for a fight. I would have been more, I was way more aggressive, and I didn't know how to let go of these bags and these traumas and put it in the past and stuff, so I was just holding on to all that aggression. I wouldn't even been able to finish my senior year probably because I would have been fighting, because there would have been some smart ass saying stuff to me because I wasn't from, because the town that my mom moved to, it was like one of those towns where everybody knows everybody. It's a small town out in the country, and everybody knows, their parents went to that school, and their parent, everybody goes to the same school. You're in the same class with the same amount of, like, the same people, because it's a small school. So you go to the same kindergarten, first, second, third, all the way through high school with the same people, because there's not that many, it's not that big of a school. And so I knew, like, I was just gonna have issues. So I was just like, you know what? My aunt and uncle offered for me to finish out my senior year at their house. So I was like, that's cool. I'll just stay here. And, and the rest is history. But I'll make other videos on that stuff too. I mean, it's just living with a family member. Yeah, I mean, I can make videos on all kinds of stuff, like, but, losing everything like that, seeing your animals, it was very traumatic. But like I said, what don't kill you makes you stronger. It made me who I am today. And everything happens for a reason, you know what I mean? It did, like, I went down a bad path in life. I turned my life around. And, if I can do it, you can do it. If you're having troubles dealing with traumatic issues and you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. Hopefully there's nothing I missed out on. I know I can ramble sometimes. This video's getting kind of long, so I was just going to wrap it up. But, I know people go through way harder stuff than I do, and sometimes you just need somebody to vent to. So if you need that, that's what I'm here for. I appreciate you all tuning in. Until next time, it's your boy Top Z. Thank you.